due to COVID-19, of course, our industry and the one of our customers, the airlines, the international airports, has been heavily impacted by COVID-19. So this is going to accelerate the way we will have to change and to adapt our business. I wouldn't call it business model, but I would say the way we deal with the service we need to deliver. So for us, it makes sense to also explore any kind of attitude, mindset, management style, which give the possibility for an industry like the one we are in to adapt itself, to develop kind of resilience while continuing serving and developing actually its business.
Hi, my name is Jenny Clark. I'm really pleased to be introducing a very interesting, I'm sure, interviewee today, Christophe Bourgon. Before I do that, I better perhaps tell you a little bit about myself. I've been in the SF world for, 25 or so years now, always working in an organizational kind of contexts. Background in the energy industry, so always interested in working with teams and groups. Retired now, happily retired, but still keeping this intense interest in what's happening in the world of SF. Christophe, hello, nice to see you here.
Nice to see you, Jenny. So I'm Christophe Bourgon. I'm living in Switzerland for 20 years now. I have an engineering background, and yeah, I did many things actually in telecommunications. I was director of sales for a French group, many international projects. Then I moved to Switzerland. And I've been working also for another telecom group during 12 years. And I moved actually in 2011 to Skyguide. Skyguide is actually the air traffic control organization, which is organizing safely, orderly, and efficiently the air traffic control over Switzerland, plus a part of some neighboring countries. Within Skyguide, I have a couple of activities and responsibilities. So my main, let's say, role as a manager is Chief of Staff of Operations and Head of Business Management, meaning that I'm working for the operation department, reporting to the COO of Skyguide, and helping actually the company and the department to move through the journey of change, transformation, but also helping our CEO in any kind of task and activities. So this is my main activities. I have a group of 12 employees, which are really a great team, supporting me and with whom I'm working in very let's say very close also to try to have SF also as a kind of management style. We're gonna come to that, I'm sure. In addition to that, for Skyguide, so company-wide, I am also ombudsperson. So I'm dealing with ombudsperson.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Ombudsperson is, we are a couple of ombudsperson actually, is a person who is dealing with any kind of conflict management within the organizations. But not only, because I'm also coach, so we aim to support our organizations and employees to move through the transformation journey. And in that particular aspect, I, of course, using SF techniques, solution-focused approach. So that's in a nutshell.
That's a huge, that's a very useful summary of what you do. And I'm hearing a lot of things there where I can see that SF might be very useful you talk about coaching, conflict management, change and transformation. But how on earth did you discover SF in the first place? What led you to think this is a good idea?
That's a very interesting question, Jenny. Thank you for that, because I'm still fascinated by the time I discover SF. Actually, it happened only 2 years ago. It was in 2018. I have been, before being ombudsperson, I have been person of trust. Person of trust in organization is a person who listens and who help people giving a ear and listening to their issues they might face and they might have in their personal and professional life. Yeah. And, you know, we discover, so I started in 2014 as person of trust, and we discovered that, okay, it was a little bit limiting, meaning that people were expecting a little bit more about person of trust, which is a kind of coaching attitude as well. So I had the chance to discuss with some colleagues of mine within the organization, within Skyguide, especially coming from the human resources, who had the chance to be trained on solution focus. And they told me, okay, but you have to try that one. And I say, well, okay, why not? I just Google a little bit, look and say, oh, that's really interesting approach, because actually it looks smart, simple, easy to understand, but I'm really curious about the effect it may have on my exchanges and interaction with internal clients. So I enrolled to this coaching training in 2018. And then this was a beautiful start of this journey, which is definitively guiding my management style and also the way I interact with people also in my personal life. So it's, for me, something which is really, really interesting, because you can summarize SF approach in one A4 page, yeah. But you can do so much with such approach that's just brilliant.
Yeah. Indeed, and your list of responsibilities that you have at the moment is exactly the kind of list that we find SF being used for. But I'm seeing you describe yourself as a person of trust. I think you must have a very open mind, that a colleague says, oh, try this, that's a good thing. Not everybody would immediately do something just because a colleague had persuaded them to. So I'm glad you did that. You talked about your change and the company, Skyguide's change and transformation journey. Can you say a bit more about that, please? Because I say this because in the days when I had a proper job, which, by the way, was in the nuclear industry, nuclear power industry, we were being changed and transformed, but we were never told what we were being changed to and what we were aiming for. So I wanted to hear a little bit about how Skyguide. I know that your industry, like mine, is full of procedures, full of the need for compliance, all of that. How do you encourage the change and transformation that you need with that kind of background?
And I think this is the most challenging question to answer, because, you know, you can talk days and weeks about what does it mean for an air navigation service provider to change, especially for our industry. And as you brilliantly summarized, Jenny, we are heavily driven by let's say regulations, compliance, safety, of course, for duly reason. But what I would say, and if I want to summarize, I would say that air traffic control in Europe is really fragmented. So that's why at European level, there are some programs which are actually to give a little bit of a much better organization, an efficient organization of how the air traffic control is done through the various countries, especially because we are in Europe and we have a sovereignty to also to take into consideration. So it's a complex journey. On top of that, due to COVID-19, of course, our industry and the one of our customers, the airlines, the international airports, has been heavily impacted by COVID-19. Mm-hmm. So this is going to accelerate the way we will have to change and to adapt our business. I wouldn't call it business model, but I would say the way we deal with the service we need to deliver. Mm-hmm. So for us, it makes sense to also explore any kind of attitude, mindset, management style, which give the possibility for an industry like the one we are in to adapt itself, to develop kind of resilience while continuing serving and developing actually its business. And for that, we need definitively to research or to, let's say, to develop a curiosity about what kind of approach could help us to become much more resilient, and also to make sure that our employees will be actually also at the same level of development, resilience, and so on. In order to.
And how has SF helped you in that?
I think SF is something, is an approach which help the people definitively to look for a bright future and to look for a stage of how it should work in an ideal world. Right. Even if it's a little bit, let's say, challenging to balance that in a full regulated environment and so on, because you can always say, okay, but it won't work because of this, because of that, and so on. Mm-hmm. But I think it's really interesting with SF because it helps you to definitively push you toward an extreme where, okay, let's take a moment to imagine how it should work in a bright future. Mm-hmm. And then capitalizing on the small step we have been doing, of course, will help definitively to secure, to reinforce actually the commitment and the self-confidence of each and every one.
Uh-huh. And have people been responsive to, it is very unusual, isn't it, to ask an engineering group not to describe what's wrong and how to fix it, but how would we like things to be in an ideal world? How did that line of questioning go?
You know, somehow I like to use such kind of, let's say, image, and I'm quite often I ask my colleagues and say, okay, if you would be in a restaurant, they will never ask you what you don't want to eat, but they ask you what do you want to eat. So let's start with that principle. I know it's basic, but let's start a discussion like this, how it should look like.
What I like about that is it would make them laugh the way it made me laugh. So you're setting off on a good foot in a way. It's intriguing. Carry on.
So what I would like also to highlight is that SF in our organization is not a kind of, let's say, corporate program with a really processed and so on. It's really like a garden. I'm feeling myself like somebody taking care of a nice garden, and I need to prepare the terrain, prepare the environment in order to have the right seeds at the right place, and just making sure that this is going to bloom at a certain stage with the brightness of what we want to achieve. So I'm not so insisting too much on, okay, I'm using SF here and so on, or even I'm just experimenting. And I'm experimenting that at any level where I have the chance to do it, of course. It could be with my team. It could be with during some meetings with my colleagues from other departments. It could be also with EB members from from time to time raising some questions which are a little bit slightly differently worded. And then I observe. I observe what's the impact on the organization, what's the impact on the answer, and so on. And just by observing, you can realize also that something is happening.
Yes, I like that you don't have to announce SF, you can just do it. And I'm sure that's a good idea, especially with such a conversational tool that we have. You don't need an hour's worth of like therapy. You could just ask a useful question from time to time. And it strikes me that your work as an ombudsperson must have helped you know the individual, many of the individuals, as well as the environment that they work in. So I really like that. You said that you'd introduced coaching into the company. Is that more as an announced venture? Are you saying we're now going to teach you how to coach?
So I think what we do in terms of coaching, of course, in the company, we have a HR organization, a very brilliant HR organization, which is spending a lot of time and energy in providing some support to our employees and organizations. So I'm just a teeny part of it, but I really feel part of it from the mindset point of view. I'm not attached to the HR organization as an ombudsperson for duly reason. But of course, we are part as a health program, of course. What I would like to say is that we count also on external coaches when we need to have some specific coaches for a specific situation. But we have also internal coaches. We have internal coaches also for the air traffic controllers, because you need to have a coach understanding the métier, you know, the activity. So we have a sort of a reserve of people, skills, internals and external, that we used based on what type of needs we need to do and what type of effect we want to get. So in my role as ombudsperson, the coaching part helped me to engage in different style of conversation with my clients, internal clients, and to contribute and to help them to develop their own tools to deal with the conflict and to solve the conflict. You know, so this is a kind of journey I like, and I really love to do it, because at a certain stage of the discussion with an employee which is in a conflict or in a difficult situation within our organization, and you can see and you observe this turning point thanks to the SF question, that something is happening, and you realize that, then it's one of the best gift and recognition I can get from that discussion.
Yeah. Have you got a favorite question?
That's a difficult question, Jenny. No.
Actually, I'm quite happy for you to say no, Christophe, partly because I used to spend my beginning journey in SF saying, I'm going to collect some really good questions. And it took me a while to realize actually the answers are more important than the questions. So, you know, I'm glad you didn't just say yes.
No, I won't be able to say yes. And for the only reason, because I don't want to fall into the trap of having a kind of process.
Indeed.
And processing questions.
Yeah.
Of course, the scaling and so on, everything which is used in SF is something which I'm following and so on. But in order to avoid to fall into this trap, I just ask myself, how should I be even much more curious about my client?
Right.
And by raising that question to me, it leaves me the space to really open the floor of any kind of questions in the interest of being much more curious about my clients, who is actually the expert about the situation.
You learn that very quickly. It took me a while to learn that, I must say, but I think that's it's the ego thing, isn't it? What good question can I ask? So yes, it's how can I get a good answer, and how do I know that I've got a good answer? That's terrific. So while we're on the question of questions, what question would you like me to ask you?
I would like to ask you to ask me the following question.
Okay.
Ideally, how would you like, Christophe, to see SF developing in an organization like the one you are working with?
Okay. So, Christophe, how would you like to see SF develop in an organization, ideally develop in an organization like yours?
Ideally, I would like to have SF contributing to really a change of mindset and attitude with a smooth effect, meaning that it's something which is done in full and conscientious way, meaning that not forcing the thing, not having processes, but just by having these seeds, you know, in each and every place of the organization, and just realizing that people, they can actually see the issue from a different angle, and then ask questions which may contribute to solving the issues or getting actually for better project collaboration, team collaboration, and so on. So I would like to take a picture of the organization today, take a picture of the organization in 5 or 10 years, and try to see whether SF or how SF has been able to change a little bit the mindset in the way people exchange and communicate and raise questions and challenge themselves.
And without having to wait 5 or 10 years, what would be, before the fruit develops in those seeds, what would be the first tiny signs, the first emergence of those seeds from the ground that shows that one day this fruit will be born? First signs.
And this is a sign that I have already observed in my team.
Good.
Because just because the level of energy in my team is so high in terms of the way they collaborate, that I even feel myself like, okay, should I still be in the team or managing this team, you know, or the way, because it's so encouraging, and it's so it gives really value to me as a whole of manager, because then I can say, okay, my team is developing itself. People are interacting to each other in a so brilliant way that, okay, I did my job as a manager because I created this environment.
Right. Yeah.
But the tricky thing is to maintain it, of course. So you need to maintain that and to constantly, of course, maintain that kind of energy and way of collaborating.
And I guess that this will start to the way that members of your team interact with members of other teams. That's how things start to spread.
Exactly, and this is, I think, the snowball effect we would aim to go, because as soon as you have some of your team members which are already changing the way they interact with others and so on, it's the best advertisement you may have in terms of, let's say, propagation, dissemination, you know, of these values and let's say approach. So you don't need to invest too much in large program, because this is actually something which it's really a snowball effect.
Yeah. And again, in an industry like yours, I'm sure there are large programs going on all the time. You don't need yet another one. So tell me again, do you announce even within your own team that this is an SF way? Have you been teaching them any of the tools consciously?
Yes, I did. I did during some workshop, and then suddenly I realized that it might be in the interest of the team to not highlight too much actually that I was using, because sometimes I even some member of my team told me, "Oh, Christophe, he starts again with his questions."
Right. Yes. Yeah.
So you have to balance a little bit, because of course you have also to ask a close question. Yes or no. Well, as a manager, you need to answer yes or no. But so that's why I think the perfect manager, which I'm not, in the future should develop this own self-confidence in knowing when he will have to place some SF questions against other style of question which you need also to raise, which are much closer question or semi-closer question.
Yeah, that's a very nice little summary of what an SF manager's job is. I think it's about timing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like a dance. You know, to dance like a tango, you need to be at least two. And of course, at least two. And you need a lot of observation and to listen. And sometimes it's really definitively valuable to play the ball in a SF way, and sometimes you need to be a little bit differently. But I think this is the beauty of role as a manager in these days now.
Thank you. Just one last then opportunity for you to just sum up what a difference SF has made to your working life.
Less stress about things you can't control. Give much more, let's say, confidence in the system and in the staff. They are the expert. They know much better than you how to run the business, how to do it. So at the opposite of micromanagement, of course. And just be curious and develop themselves, and I'm here for that as a manager. You know.
I'd come and work for you. Christophe Bourgon, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Jenny. It was really a pleasure.